Easy. You're safe. Look at me. Breathe.
Get away from my daughter! Madam, he's just trash. Move!
Don't call me trash. She needed comfort.
He saved me in the rain, and he knows what you did that night, Mommy.
The city had never cared about the homeless man outside the tower, until the night he comforted the billionaire CEO's mute daughter. His name was Elias, a quiet man who slept beneath the bridge and begged near her glass headquarters. To everyone passing by, he was trash. But when the billionaire's little girl ran from the limousine, shaking and unable to speak, Elias was the only one who knelt down, wrapped his torn coat around her, and made her feel safe. Instead of gratitude, the CEO saw shame. Because Elias had witnessed something no one was supposed to remember. That same evening, the CEO's security guards shoved him into the rain and gave one cold warning: "Come near this family again, and you'll disappear." They called him dirty, accused him of frightening the child, and left him outside like he was nothing. The billionaire CEO returned to her perfect life, unaware that the man she had thrown away was the only person her daughter trusted. But 48 hours later, during a luxury charity gala, the little girl stood before everyone, trembling. Then she pointed at the homeless man and spoke her first words, not to the doctors, not to the guests, and not even to her mother. She whispered, "He saved me in the rain, and he knows what you did that night, Mommy." The CEO's glass slipped from her hand. And for the first time in her life, the most powerful woman in the city began to tremble. For 3 full seconds, no one moved. The orchestra stopped first. One violinist lowered her bow slowly, as if the slightest sound might shatter the room. Then the guests stopped whispering. Crystal glasses hung frozen in the air. Cameras that had been flashing moments before now pointed straight at Celeste Varick, the woman whose name was written across hospitals, schools, banks, and half the city's skyline. Celeste's face had gone pale beneath the soft gold lights. Her daughter Lily stood near the marble staircase with both hands clenched around Elias' sleeve. The child's eyes were wide and wet, but her voice had been real. Everyone had heard it. After 3 years of silence, Lily Varick had spoken. And the first thing she had done was accuse her mother. Celeste forced a smile, but it trembled at the corners. "Lily," she said gently, though her voice cracked, "sweetheart, come here." Lily shook her head and pressed closer to Elias. A few guests gasped. No one in that room had ever seen Celeste Varick denied anything, least of all by her own child. Elias stood still, soaked from the rain outside, his old coat dripping onto the polished floor. Security had dragged him halfway through the service entrance before Lily saw him and screamed without sound. Then, somehow, she had found her voice. Now the guards hovered nearby, unsure whether to touch him in front of 300 witnesses. Celeste's chief of security, Damon, stepped forward. "Ma'am." Celeste lifted one finger without looking at him. Damon stopped. The billionaire CEO took one careful step toward her daughter. "Lily, you're confused. You've been through a shock. This man frightened you." "No," Lily whispered. The word was small, but it cut through the room like thunder. Celeste stopped again. Elias lowered his gaze to the child. "You don't have to say anything else," he said softly. "You already did something very brave." But Lily looked up at him with desperate eyes, as though she had carried a locked box inside her chest for years and had finally found the key. "He was there," she said, each word shaky, "at the bridge in the rain." The guests began murmuring. "Bridge. Rain." Those 2 words had lived in the city's memory for 3 years. Everyone remembered the Varick accident. The official story had been simple. Celeste's husband, Daniel Varick, had died after their family car crashed near the East River Bridge during a storm. Lily, only 4 years old at the time, survived, but the trauma stole her voice. Celeste became the grieving widow, the brave mother, the CEO who built an empire while raising a silent child. That was the story the city had been told. But now Lily was shaking her head. Celeste's smile vanished. "Enough," she said. It was not loud, it did not have to be. People who worked for Celeste knew that tone. It was the tone that ended meetings, careers, and sometimes entire companies. But Elias did not move. He had heard that voice before. 3 years ago. In the rain. Damon reached for Elias' arm, but Lily clung tighter. Don't touch him. The room fell into a deeper silence. Celeste looked around and saw phones raised. Reporters from 3 business magazines stood near the champagne table. City officials watched from the front row. Members of her board whispered behind white napkins. Her perfect charity gala, designed to celebrate the opening of a children's medical wing, had become a stage she could not escape. Put your phones away, Celeste ordered. No one did. That was when Elias finally raised his head. He looked older than he was. His beard was uneven, his eyes tired, his hands rough from winter streets and borrowed blankets. But beneath the dirt and hunger, there was something steady in him, something Celeste had hoped time would bury. Mrs. Varick, he said. Celeste flinched at the name. Since Daniel died, she insisted everyone call her Ms. Varick or Madam CEO. She hated being reminded that she had once been someone's wife. Elias continued, I never wanted to come here tonight. Your daughter saw me outside, that's all. You broke into my event, Celeste said. I was dragged in through the service doors by your security after they found me near the dumpsters. Because you were trespassing. Because I was hungry. Somewhere in the room, someone inhaled sharply. Celeste's eyes hardened. Do not perform poverty in my ballroom. Elias almost smiled, but there was no joy in it. I don't perform it, I live it. Lily looked between them, sensing the storm building. Her small hand slipped into Elias. He squeezed it once, gently. Celeste saw the gesture and her face twisted, not with grief, not with fear, but jealousy. For 3 years, she had hired the best doctors, speech therapists, child psychologists, private tutors, music specialists, and trauma experts money could buy. She had flown Lily to clinics in Switzerland and Japan. She had spent millions trying to make her daughter speak. Yet Lily's first words were for a homeless man. A man Celeste had ordered thrown into the rain. You don't know my daughter, Celeste said. Elias looked down at Lily. I know she likes paper birds. Lily nodded. I know thunder scares her, but only when it comes after headlights. Lily's eyes filled again. I know she remembers the smell of gasoline and roses. Celeste stopped breathing. A woman near the front whispered, gasoline and roses. Elias looked at Celeste. Your perfume, that night, white roses. Celeste's lips parted, but no words came. The ballroom changed. Before, the guests had been curious. Now they were afraid, not of Elias, of what he knew. Damon stepped closer again, but this time he did not grab Elias. He looked at Celeste, as if waiting for a command that might decide the rest of his life. Celeste straightened. She had built Varick Global by learning how to survive rooms full of enemies. She knew how to crush rumors, redirect questions, and make powerful people doubt their own eyes. So she laughed. It was soft at first, then brighter, controlled, elegant, the kind of laugh printed in society magazines. My God, she said, looking around the room. Are we really doing this? Are we allowing a disturbed stranger to exploit a sick child? Elias' jaw tightened. She is not sick, he said. Celeste turned on him. Do not speak about my daughter. She was never broken. That sentence landed harder than any accusation. Lily looked up at him. Elias knelt so he was closer to her height. You were scared, he told her. That's all, and scared people need time. Lily's chin trembled. Celeste's voice sharpened. Damon, remove him. Lily screamed, no. This time her voice was loud. The sound echoed up to the chandeliers. The guests recoiled. Celeste froze. Even Damon stepped back. Lily was crying now, but the silence that had trapped her for years was breaking, piece by piece. He didn't hurt me, she said. He helped me. Celeste's hands curled into fists. Lily, stop. No, Lily pointed at her mother. You stopped. That night, you stopped Daddy. The room went cold. Elias closed his eyes. He had hoped the child would not have to say it. Celeste whispered, You don't remember. I do, Lily said. Her voice was not strong, but it was clear enough. I remember the car. I remember Daddy saying, Call someone. I remember you saying, Not yet. A man from the mayor's office stood slowly. One of Celeste's board members muttered, What is she talking about? Celeste tried to recover. She was 4. She was confused. Children create memories from dreams, from stories. You told Mr. Nathan to move Daddy, Lily said. Celeste staggered, as if the floor had shifted. Nathan! No one had spoken that name publicly in 3 years. Nathan Reed had been the Varick family driver. According to the official report, he had been behind the wheel that night. The story said he lost control in the storm, causing the crash. Nathan later vanished after resigning. Rumors said Celeste had paid him to leave the country. Others said shame had driven him away. But Elias knew Nathan had not been driving. Daniel had. And Celeste had been in the passenger seat, arguing with him. The truth had lived in Elias' memory like a wound. 3 years earlier, Elias Morgan had not been homeless. He had been a maintenance supervisor for the city's bridge authority, the kind of man who carried a lunch pail, paid rent on time, and sent half his paycheck to his sister. He was working the late shift during the storm, checking flood drains beneath the East River Bridge, when he heard tires scream above him. He ran toward the sound. The black Varick car had struck the side barrier and spun down the service road near the old underpass. It was raining so hard that the world looked silver. Elias remembered the headlights cutting through the storm. He remembered a child crying without sound in the back seat. He remembered Daniel Varick trapped and bleeding from a cut at his temple, still conscious, still begging for help. But most of all, he remembered Celeste. She stood outside the car in a white evening gown, soaked through, holding her phone but not calling emergency services. Instead, she was calling Nathan. Get here now, she said, and bring the second car. Elias had shouted, Ma'am, call an ambulance. Celeste looked at him like he was an insect that had learned to speak. Then Lily began choking on panic in the back seat, her little hands hitting the window. Elias broke the jammed door handle with a wrench and pulled her free. He wrapped her in his rain jacket and carried her beneath the bridge. She's safe, he told Celeste. Now call for help. But Celeste was staring at Daniel. Her husband kept repeating one thing, the files, Celeste, I gave them to Hale, it's over. Elias did not know then what Daniel meant. Later, he learned. Daniel had discovered that Varick Global was using illegal shell companies to hide dangerous defects in one of its construction projects, a project that had already injured workers. Daniel planned to give the evidence to federal investigators. That night, he told Celeste he was leaving her and taking Lily. By morning, Daniel was dead. The ambulance had arrived too late. Nathan Reed was named the driver. Elias Morgan was arrested for stealing Daniel's watch and wallet, items planted in his work locker 2 days later. He lost his job. He lost his apartment. He lost his name. The charges were eventually dropped quietly, but no one hired a man accused of robbing a dying billionaire. Celeste Varick survived. Her company survived. Her secret survived. And Lily stopped speaking. Now, in the ballroom, those secrets stood between them like ghosts. Celeste's face changed as she realized the story was no longer buried beneath money, lawyers, and time. It had found a voice. Her daughter's voice. Lily, she said, and for the first time that night, she sounded like a mother instead of a CEO. Please. Lily stared at her. Why did you leave him? Celeste's eyes filled, but whether from guilt or fear, no one could tell. I didn't, she whispered. Elias stood slowly. Yes, you did. Celeste turned on him. You know nothing. I know I called emergency services from the maintenance line because your phone was in your hand and you wouldn't do it. You're lying. I know Nathan arrived 10 minutes later. I know you made him sit in the driver's seat before the police came. The room erupted. No, Celeste snapped. No, this is absurd. I know Daniel was alive when I pulled Lily out. Celeste backed away. I know he asked me to protect her. Lily looked up quickly. Daddy said that. Elias nodded, his voice breaking for the first time. He said, "Tell my little bird I'm sorry." Lily covered her mouth. Celeste's shoulders shook once. There it was, the nickname. Little Bird. Daniel had called Lily that since she was born because she used to flap her hands whenever she laughed. No report had mentioned it, no newspaper knew it, no stranger could have guessed it. A reporter near the dessert table whispered, "We're live." Celeste heard her. Every mask she had worn for years began to crack. "Turn that off," she said. The reporter did not move. Damon looked around, suddenly aware of the cameras, the guests, the power shifting away from Celeste and toward the truth. For years, Damon had obeyed her without question. He had believed loyalty meant silence, but he had also been the one to drag Elias into the rain 2 nights earlier. He had seen Lily reach for the man then. He had seen the terror in the child's eyes when Celeste ordered him removed. And now he understood why. "Madam," Damon said quietly, "maybe we should call your attorney." Celeste stared at him as if he had slapped her. "My attorney," she repeated. Damon lowered his eyes. "Yes." That single word told the room everything. The guests began moving now, not toward the exits, but closer. People wanted to hear, wanted to see, wanted to be able to say they were present when Celeste Varick fell from the sky. But Lily was not thinking about empires or scandals. She was looking at her mother. "Did Daddy die because of you?" she asked. The question was so simple, so innocent, that it stripped away every legal defense before Celeste could form one. Celeste opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Elias stepped between them slightly, not to protect Celeste from Lily, but to protect Lily from the answer. "Your father loved you," he said. "That's what matters most." But Lily did not look away from her mother. Celeste covered her face with one hand. For a moment, she looked smaller than anyone had ever seen her, not powerful, not untouchable, just a woman trapped inside the life she had built from lies. Then a new voice spoke from the back of the room. "I can prove it." Everyone turned. A man stood near the service entrance wearing a black kitchen uniform. He was thin, gray-haired, and trembling so badly he had to grip the doorframe. Celeste looked at him and went still. "Nathan," she breathed. The name traveled through the ballroom like fire. Nathan Reed stepped forward. 3 years had changed him. His once straight posture had bent. His face was lined with sleeplessness, but his eyes were clear. "I came because of him," Nathan said, nodding toward Elias. "He found me." Elias looked surprised. "I found your sister. I didn't know you'd come." Nathan gave a sad smile. "I wasn't brave enough until tonight." Celeste shook her head. "You signed an agreement." Nathan laughed once bitterly. "I signed a lie." Damon moved as if to stop him, then stayed where he was. Nathan reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small silver flash drive. Celeste's eyes locked onto it. Nathan held it up. "Daniel Varick gave me copies of everything the week before he died, company records, inspection reports, emails, and one audio file from the car." Celeste whispered, "You destroyed those." "I told you I did." The ballroom was so quiet that the rain against the high windows sounded like fingers tapping on glass. Nathan's gaze shifted to Lily, his expression softened. "I'm sorry, little bird." Lily stared at him. Somewhere deep in her memory, she knew his face. Nathan looked at the crowd. I lied to the police. Celeste paid me, threatened my family, and told me if I didn't say I was driving, she would ruin everyone I loved. Celeste's voice turned cold. You were driving. No, Nathan said. Daniel was. You were arguing with him because he was going to expose Varick Global. I followed in the second car because you told me to stay close. When the crash happened, you called me before you called for help. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. Nathan looked down, and I obeyed. His shame filled the room more heavily than Celeste's anger. I moved Daniel, he said quietly. I sat behind the wheel. I told the police what she told me to say. I have lived with that every day since. Celeste whispered, You coward. Nathan looked at her. Yes, I was. Then he looked at Elias, but he was. All eyes returned to the homeless man. Elias looked uncomfortable beneath the attention. He had spent 3 years being invisible. Now visibility felt almost painful. He saved Lily, Nathan said. He called for help, and when he tried to tell the truth, Celeste destroyed him. Celeste lifted her chin. This is conspiracy. This is extortion. Every person in this room should be ashamed for entertaining the delusions of a vagrant and a disgraced former employee. But the word vagrant no longer had the power she wanted it to have. Not with Lily holding Elias' hand. Not with Nathan holding proof. Not with cameras recording. Then the mayor stepped forward. Ms. Varick, he said carefully, I think it would be wise for everyone to remain here until the authorities arrive. Celeste laughed sharply. The authorities in my building. Especially in your building, he said. That was when Celeste finally understood that power had limits. Money could buy silence from frightened men. It could not buy silence from a child who had finally found her voice. She turned toward Lily, and something desperate entered her face. Everything I did for you. Lily shook her head. No. For this family, for your future. No. For the company your grandfather built, for the thousands of people depending on me. Lily stepped back. Daddy depended on you. Celeste looked as if the words had struck her in the heart. Elias gently guided Lily away from the center of the room. Come on, he said. You've said enough. But Lily stopped. She looked at her mother one last time. I waited, she whispered. Celeste frowned through her tears. What? In the car, I waited for you to help him. Celeste's face broke. For one brief moment, the room saw the truth, not in documents, not in files, not in testimony, but in the collapse of a woman who could no longer escape the memory of her daughter's eyes watching from the back seat. Celeste sank into a chair. No one touched her. No one comforted her. Sirens began to sound outside. The gala did not end with applause or speeches. It ended with police lights flashing red and blue across the ballroom ceiling, turning the crystal chandeliers into trembling stars. By midnight, Celeste Varick was escorted from her own tower. She did not resist. She did not speak to the reporters. She did not even look at Elias as she passed him. But she looked at Lily. Lily looked away. That hurt Celeste more than the cameras. Elias stayed beside the child until a social worker arrived with Daniel's sister, Aunt Rebecca, who had spent 3 years trying and failing to see Lily without Celeste's lawyers blocking her. When Rebecca entered the ballroom, Lily ran to her. Rebecca fell to her knees and held her tightly. My sweet girl, she cried. My sweet, brave girl. Lily cried too, but this time she made sound, not many words, just small broken sobs that seemed to release years of silence. Elias stood back. He had done what Daniel asked. He had protected the little bird as best he could. Now she had family, real family. So he turned toward the service door. He was almost through it when Lily called, Elias. He stopped. No one had said his name like that in years. He turned. Lily wiped her face with both hands. Don't go. Rebecca looked from Lily to Elias, then back again. She understood immediately what Celeste never had. Trust could not be purchased. It had to be earned. Mr. Morgan, Rebecca said gently, please stay. Elias shook his head. I don't belong here. Lily walked toward him. You do with me. The words nearly broke him. For 3 years, Elias had survived by not wanting too much, food when he could get it, a dry place when the rain came, a few coins, a little dignity from strangers who looked him in the eye. But belonging was more dangerous than hunger. Belonging gave a man something to lose. I'm not family, he said. Lily took his hand again. You saved me. Elias looked at Rebecca, expecting discomfort, suspicion, maybe fear. Instead, Daniel's sister bowed her head. Then you are family to me, she said. The police took statements for hours. Elias told the truth plainly. He did not decorate it, did not exaggerate, did not try to punish Celeste with extra cruelty. He simply said what he saw. Nathan gave the flash drive to investigators. Damon, to everyone's surprise, handed over internal security records from the night Elias was threatened outside the tower. He also admitted that Celeste had ordered him to keep Elias away from Lily at all costs. By morning, the city woke to headlines that seemed impossible. Mute RS, SBAKS AT Gala, ACCUSES CEO mother. Homeless man identified as key witness in VARICK cover-up. Former driver returns with evidence in Billionaire crash case. But newspapers could not capture what mattered most. For the first time in 3 years, Lily woke up and said good morning. The words were quiet, whispered into Aunt Rebecca's shoulder in a private hospital room away from cameras, but they were real. Rebecca cried so hard the nurse brought tissues. Elias was not there. He had disappeared before dawn. When Lily asked for him, no one knew what to say. Rebecca sent people to the bridge. They found his cardboard, his folded blanket, the old tin cup where he kept coins, but Elias was gone. The city had finally seen him, and he had run from being seen. 2 days passed. Celeste's empire began to crack. Board members resigned. Investigators opened old files. Workers who had been silenced by settlements came forward. Families who had lost loved ones in Varick projects demanded answers. Nathan's flash drive became the key to a larger investigation, one that stretched beyond Daniel's accident into years of hidden negligence. Celeste's lawyers released a statement saying she denied all wrongdoing. No one believed it. Not anymore. But Lily did not care about statements. She cared that Elias was missing. He thinks we don't want him, she told Rebecca. Rebecca brushed Lily's hair away from her face. Maybe he thinks wanting him would be too hard. Lily frowned. That doesn't make sense. To children, no, Rebecca said softly. To adults who have been hurt, sometimes it does. That afternoon, Lily asked for paper. Rebecca brought a stack of white sheets and colored pencils. Lily sat at the hospital table and carefully folded the first sheet into a bird. It was uneven, but she smiled at it. Elias made one better, she said. Rebecca watched her niece with wonder. Every word still felt like a miracle. What should we do with it? She asked. Lily wrote 3 words on the wing. Come back home. Rebecca did not correct the word home. That evening, Damon arrived at the hospital. He looked different without his earpiece and black suit, tired, guilty, human. Rebecca almost refused to let him in, but Lily said, "It's okay." Damon stood near the door, holding Elias' old coat, freshly cleaned and folded. "I found him," he said. Lily sat up quickly. "Where?" "At the old train station." Rebecca's expression sharpened. "Why didn't you bring him?" Damon looked ashamed. "He wouldn't come with me. I don't blame him." Lily pushed back her blanket. Take me. No, Rebecca said immediately. You're still recovering. I need to see him. Lily. He came when I needed him. Rebecca closed her eyes. It was unfair how simple truth could defeat every reasonable argument. An hour later, Rebecca, Lily, and Damon drove through the city in a plain black car without logos or security flags. Rain had washed the streets clean, but the world still looked grey. The old train station sat on the east side, abandoned except for pigeons and people who had nowhere else to go. Its roof leaked. Its ticket windows were boarded. A faded mural of mountains stretched across one wall, promising journeys no one there could afford. They found Elias sitting on a bench beneath the broken departure board. He looked up when he saw them, and pain crossed his face. Lily, he said, you shouldn't be here. She walked toward him, carrying the paper bird. You left. I had to. No, you didn't. Elias looked down. Your life is going to change now. You'll have your aunt, doctors, a proper home. You don't need a man like me standing in the middle of it. Lily held out the paper bird. He took it slowly. When he read the words, his hands shook. Come back home. I don't have a home, he whispered. You can have one. Elias closed his eyes. It's not that simple. Rebecca stepped closer. Maybe not, but it can start simply with a warm meal, a room, a lawyer to clear your name properly, medical care, rest. He gave a faint laugh. You make rescue sound like paperwork. Sometimes it is, Rebecca said. Sometimes love needs paperwork so it can stay safe. Damon looked away, pretending not to be moved. Elias stared at the paper bird. I was angry for a long time, he said, at Celeste, at Nathan, at the police, at everyone who looked through me. You should be, Rebecca said. But anger kept me alive after hope became too expensive. Lily sat beside him on the bench. Is hope still expensive? Elias looked at her. The child who had not spoken for 3 years was now asking questions that could undo him. Sometimes, he said. She leaned against his arm. I have some. A small sound escaped him, almost a laugh, almost a sob. Rebecca waited. She did not rush him. She understood that trust, like speech, could return slowly. Finally, Elias stood. Not because he was fixed. Not because the past had stopped hurting. But because a little girl had offered him a paper bird and called it home. And that was enough for one step. The weeks that followed were not as clean as the headlines wanted them to be. The city loved a fall from grace. Celeste Varick's face appeared on every screen. Commentators who had once praised her strength now dissected her coldness. Former friends pretended they had always suspected something. Politicians returned donations. Charities removed her name from buildings. Her company's stock crashed. But justice moved slower than public outrage. Celeste's lawyers fought everything. They questioned Lily's memory. They attacked Nathan's credibility. They called Elias unstable, bitter, and unreliable. They tried to suggest that Rebecca had influenced Lily for control of the Varick fortune. Every accusation cut. But this time, Elias was not alone. Rebecca hired a legal team to clear his record. Nathan testified under protection. Damon provided internal communications. And Lily, carefully and only when doctors agreed, gave a recorded statement. She did not remember everything. No one asked her to. She remembered enough. She remembered rain. She remembered her father's voice. She remembered her mother holding the phone. She remembered Elias' coat. She remembered waiting. That was enough to reopen the accident case. As the investigation widened, something unexpected happened. People began coming to the bridge. Not reporters, not at first. Ordinary people. A restaurant owner brought soup. A nurse brought blankets. A retired teacher brought books. a young man who had once ignored Elia's every morning, left a handwritten apology tucked under the bridge railing. The homeless people who slept there were suspicious at first. They had seen Charity appear for cameras and vanish by winter, but Rebecca asked Elias what would actually help. He told her the truth. "Don't bring pity," he said. "Bring bathrooms, storage lockers, a clinic van. People lose documents out here, and without documents, they stay invisible. Bring someone who can help with IDs." Rebecca listened. Within a month, Daniel's old foundation, taken out of Celeste's control, announced a new program called the Little Bird Initiative. It began small: mobile showers, legal aid, mental health counselors, job placement, and temporary rooms that did not require impossible paperwork. At the opening, reporters begged Lily to attend. Rebecca refused. "She is a child," she said, "not a symbol for your cameras." But Lily wanted to see it privately. So one Sunday morning, before the official speeches, Rebecca brought her and Elias to the renovated shelter building near the bridge. It had clean windows, bright walls, and a kitchen that smelled like fresh bread. Elias stood in the doorway, unable to enter. Lily tugged his hand. "Come on." He swallowed. "I used to dream about a place like this." "Then why are you standing outside?" "Because sometimes when a dream opens the door, you're scared it'll close again." Lily considered this seriously. "Then we go in fast." She pulled him inside. The director of the program, a woman named Marisol, greeted Elias with respect, not pity. She had once lived in her car with 2 children before rebuilding her life. She knew the difference between saving people and helping them stand. "We'd like you on the advisory board," she told Elias. He looked behind him as if she meant someone else. "I don't know anything about boards," he said. "You know what people need." "That's not the same." "It's better." Elias looked at Rebecca. She smiled. "You don't have to wear a suit." "Good," he said. "I don't trust suits." Lily giggled. The sound made everyone pause. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was ordinary. And ordinary was the miracle they had all been waiting for. 3 months later, Celeste's trial began. The courthouse steps were packed from morning until night. Cameras flashed whenever a lawyer entered. Reporters repeated the same phrases: disgraced CEO, tragic heiress, homeless hero, corporate scandal. Elias hated being called a hero. Heroes, he thought, were clean in stories. They arrived at the right moment, did the brave thing, and walked into the sunrise while music played. Real life was messier. He had saved Lily, yes, but he had also spent years hiding from the world. He had hated Nathan. He had imagined Celeste's ruin more times than he wanted to admit. He had stolen bread once. He had shouted at people who tried to help him. He had stopped believing his own name mattered. But Lily did not need him to be perfect. That helped. On the second day of trial, Celeste saw Elias in the hallway outside the courtroom. She looked thinner. Her expensive clothes hung differently now. No cameras were allowed in that corridor, so for once, she had no audience. Elias was standing near a window, holding a paper cup of coffee. Celeste approached slowly. The deputy nearby watched, but did not stop her. "Mr. Morgan," she said. He looked at her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Celeste said, "I don't expect forgiveness." "That's good," Elias replied. She flinched. He surprised himself by feeling no satisfaction. Celeste looked through the window at the grey sky. Daniel was going to destroy everything. "No," Elias said, "he was going to tell the truth." To men like Daniel, truth was simple. He never understood what it took to keep an empire alive. Maybe he understood exactly what it was costing. Her mouth tightened. Then she said something Elias did not expect. When Lily stopped speaking, I told myself it was because of the accident, because of losing him, but some part of me knew. Her voice lowered. She looked at me every day like she was still waiting for me to call for help. Elias said nothing. Celeste's eyes filled. I loved my daughter. I believe you did, he said. She looked at him quickly. But you loved your power more in the moment it mattered most. Celeste closed her eyes. That sentence seemed to finish something in her, not the case, not the consequences, something deeper and quieter. I thought winning meant never being weak, she said. Elias looked at the courtroom doors. No, sometimes winning means telling the truth while it can still save someone. Celeste nodded once, almost to herself. Then the deputy called her name. She walked away. That afternoon, Celeste changed her plea on several charges connected to the cover-up. Her legal team objected, scrambled, whispered fiercely, but she ignored them. In court, she admitted she delayed calling for emergency help after the crash. She admitted Nathan was not driving. She admitted she used company resources to bury evidence and discredit Elias. She denied intending Daniel's death, but she accepted responsibility for the lie that followed. When the judge asked why she was changing her plea, Celeste turned toward the gallery. Lily sat between Rebecca and Elias. Celeste looked at her daughter and said, because she waited long enough. Lily did not run to her. She did not smile. But she listened. For Celeste, that was more mercy than she deserved. The sentencing came later. There were still lawsuits, investigations, and consequences that would take years to unfold. Varick Global was broken apart. The foundation was renamed after Daniel. Nathan received a reduced sentence for his cooperation, though he insisted on doing community service at the shelter long after the court required it. Elias' record was cleared fully. The city issued an apology. It was printed on thick paper, signed by important people, and framed by Rebecca. Elias kept it in a drawer. What's the point of hiding it? Rebecca asked. I know what it says, he answered. Yes, but other people should know too. He smiled faintly. I spent years caring what other people thought. I'm tired. Rebecca understood. Some wounds did not need public display to heal. A year passed. Then another. Lily grew taller. Her voice grew stronger. She still had quiet days when words felt far away, but no one forced them. Elias learned that healing was not a straight road. Some mornings, Lily talked non-stop about birds, school, books, and whether pancakes counted as cake. Other mornings, she sat silently beside him and folded paper cranes. Both kinds of mornings were good. Elias moved into a small apartment above the community center near the bridge. At first, he slept on the floor because the bed felt too soft. Marisol told him that was common. Lily told him it was silly. Eventually, he used the bed. He began shaving regularly. He found his old Bridge Authority jacket in a storage box Rebecca recovered. He did not wear it, but he touched the name patch sometimes. Elias Morgan. Proof that he had been someone before the world forgot. One spring afternoon, Lily came to the shelter kitchen after school and found him repairing a loose cabinet hinge. You're always fixing things, she said. He tightened a screw. Things keep breaking. Can people be fixed? Elias paused. He set down the screwdriver and looked at her carefully. People aren't cabinets. I know. Then no, not fixed exactly. What then? He thought about the bridge, the rain, the ballroom, Celeste's trembling hands, his own first night in a clean room, Nathan washing dishes at the shelter with quiet patience, Rebecca learning how to raise a child carrying memories too heavy for her age. People can be cared for, he said. They can heal. They can change direction. They can learn to carry what happened without letting it become all they are. Lily nodded slowly. Is Mommy fixed? Elias did not answer quickly. Celeste was serving her sentence in a women's prison outside the city. She wrote letters to Lily every month. Rebecca kept them in a box. Lily read some and ignored others. no one pushed her. I don't know, Elias said honestly. That's work only she can do. Do I have to forgive her? No. Lily looked relieved and sad at the same time. You never have to give forgiveness because other people want a pretty ending, Elias said. You can take your time. You can decide what keeps your heart safe. Lily leaned against the counter. Do you forgive her? Elias looked out the window toward the bridge. For a long time, he had thought forgiveness meant saying the pain no longer mattered. He knew better now. I don't wake up every day wanting her destroyed, he said. That's as far as I've gotten. Lily considered that. That sounds healthier. He laughed. You sound like Dr. Patel. She says I'm emotionally advanced. She's right. Lily smiled. Then she pulled a folded paper from her backpack. I wrote something for school, she said. Elias wiped his hands on a towel. Want me to read it? She hesitated. I want to read it to you. So he sat. Lily unfolded the paper. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. My assignment was to write about someone brave, she began. I wrote about my friend Elias. Most people thought he was nobody because he had no home, but they were wrong. He had kindness when other people had money. He listened when other people shouted. He was brave because he told the truth, but he was also brave because he stayed gentle. Elias looked down. The words blurred. Lily continued, my dad called me Little Bird. After he died, I forgot how to sing. Elias did not make me speak. He made me feel safe enough to try. That is different. Brave people do not always look strong. Sometimes they look tired. Sometimes they are hungry. Sometimes they are sitting in the rain, waiting for someone to see them. She stopped. Elias covered his mouth. Is it okay? She asked. He nodded, unable to speak. Lily smiled softly. Now you're the mute one. He laughed through tears. That evening, they walked to the bridge together. The city looked different from there now. The Varick Tower still stood in the distance, but its sign had been removed. Another company would buy it eventually. Another name would glow in the skyline. The world always tried to move on quickly. But beneath the bridge, there was a small bronze plaque near the entrance to the community center. It read, For those the city failed to see, may this be a place of shelter, dignity, and second chance. In memory of Daniel Varick, in honor of Lily Varick's courage, and Elias Morgan's truth. Elias had argued against his name being included. He lost. Lily placed a fresh paper bird at the base of the plaque. Do you think Daddy sees? She asked. Elias looked at the river, shining gold beneath the sunset. I think love doesn't disappear just because people do, he said. Lily slipped her hand into his. For a while, neither spoke. They listened to the water, the traffic, the distant hum of a city that had once walked past Elias without seeing him. Then Lily said, I'm glad you were there that night. Elias closed his eyes. He had spent years wishing he could forget that night, wishing he had worked a different shift, wishing he had never seen the crash, never faced Celeste, never lost everything for telling a truth no one wanted. But if he had not been there, Lily might have been alone in the rain. So he squeezed her hand and said, So am I. Behind them, the shelter lights came on one by one. Warm squares of yellow appeared in the windows. Inside, people were eating dinner. Someone laughed. A baby cried. A volunteer dropped a tray and everyone clapped instead of scolding. Life, imperfect and noisy, filled the place. Lily tugged his sleeve. Come on, Marisol made soup. Elias looked once more at the river. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a man standing outside the world. He followed Lily inside. And far across the city, in a prison cell where the walls were plain and the nights were long, Celeste Varick sat at a narrow desk with a pen in her hand. She had written many letters to Lily. Most began with apologies. Most ended with pleas. That night, she started differently. My little bird. I spent my life believing silence could protect us. I was wrong. Silence only protected my lies. Your voice saved you. It saved the truth. And maybe one day it will save whatever remains of me. She stopped writing and pressed the pen to the paper. Tears fell, blurring the ink. For years, Celeste had made other people tremble. Now she trembled before the truth. And though no apology could bring Daniel back, undo Elia's suffering, or return Lily's stolen years, Celeste finally understood what the homeless man had known in the rain. A life is not measured by towers, not by money, not by fear, not by the power to silence others. A life is measured by the moment someone helpless reaches out, and whether you choose to save them.